Hey there! So with the recent release of Chapter 5 came along, of course, a new egg room with it, being probably the final egg room of the game. Now, the newest chapter's egg room had me really stumped on what to think of the egg rooms going on from this point because it seemed so much more, I don't know how to say, comedic compared to Chapter 4's, which was very serious. So today, I want to give my full in-depth thoughts on the egg, the tree, and the man, and determine once and for all if the egg rooms are an utter joke or filled with lore. So, to start us off, I'm going to summarize each of the egg rooms in each of the 5 chapters of Deltarune. So, let's start with the obvious starting point. Chapter 1. The egg room in Chapter 1 is located in the Scarlet Forest section of the chapter, within the loading zone after the Starwalker segment. I say within the loading zone because if you didn't know how to access these egg rooms, most of them, you need to go back and forth between 2 rooms until you will eventually make it to a room in between them. The chance is about 1 in 50, I believe, so don't be surprised if it takes a few minutes, just be persistent. Anyways, you will be out in a room with seemingly nothing but a tree from the Scarlet Forest. However, notably only Kris is left in the party with Rosé not being there. If you walk behind the tree, there should be something that feels like an invisible wall. Interact with it and you will begin dialogue. The dialogue states that there is a man behind the tree, and he offers you an egg. Accepting this gives you the egg in Chapter 1. Once you leave the room, you will re-enter the game like normal, but taken back a few areas to the bake sale area. The egg is the same in every chapter. It stays the same in the light world, and checking the info says, not too important, not too unimportant. Very important check dialogue, even though it says it's not. The egg can be put in Asgore's fridge in this chapter, in the light world, but will disappear from your inventory nonetheless, no matter what. After the chapter ends, but the game will remember that you collected it. It is important that it remembers it. And that is the first egg room. The key details that are important and should be remembered are 3 things: the egg, the tree, and the man. Remember that moving forward because that will be consistent in all the egg rooms. So just with the info we got from the very first egg room, even though this is the most bare bones one, before we continue to Chapter 2, I really want to take a quick detour to something I find very, very interesting myself. So, you know the Weird Route, probably. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you know the Weird Route. And everyone always talks about how the Weird Route, you are quote-unquote literally breaking the game. Like, the game is breaking and you're, like, doing things that the game is not supposed to be doing. I do agree with this. I think the Weird Route is very much saying that you're breaking the game by doing it. However, what people will often say is that Noelle is the only way we can break the game, which I don't really believe to be true after doing all this research for this video, because I think she is the only way to break the game to the extent of the Weird Route. I say this because, to me, the egg rooms feel like a very different way of breaking the game, as you seemingly are clipping out of the map of the game into a quote-unquote unused area of the game, and as I talk about more later, it really seems kind of like cut content from the game. You can't stumble upon any of the egg rooms accidentally. I'm sorry, you really can't, especially the Chapter 3 one. Now, I don't think that the eggs and the Weird Route are related. Well, they kind of are. They are related in the fact that they are opposites of each other. You physically cannot get all the eggs if you do the Weird Route. In fact, you can't get any of the collectibles, all of them, if you do the Weird Route, because you can't get all the shadow crystals, and you can't get all the eggs if you do the Weird Route. I'm not sure if this does mean anything. It probably means more for the Weird Route than the eggs. However, I do think that Deltarune has a bigger theme of breaking the game outside of just the Weird Route, is my point here. So back on track, in Chapter 2 of Deltarune, the egg room is located in the Cyber City section, with Noelle in your party. During a section with all the cars moving downwards, you also have to make your way downwards to a room that is very much out of the way. Entering this room at first will take you to a room where, again, you are just Kris, but you get run over by the annoying dog in a car and then a fake game over. But you will then be sent to a dumpster wherein, between the loading zone, there's the egg room again. Notably, behind the Scarlet Forest tree is still where the man is, even though the Scarlet Forest tree is not in the Chapter 2 at all outside of this, and this will be reoccurring. Again, the man will offer you an egg, and you have the option to take it or not. In the light world, this time, you can put it in the egg basket in Sans' convenience store, but either way, the egg will leave your inventory. It actually really doesn't matter if you put it anywhere or not. I don't know if this will affect anything going forward, because they seemingly stopped caring about putting in the light world later. Somewhere. Okay, strap in, because it's time to summarize the Chapter 3 egg room. So, to get to this egg room, you can get it in one of two ways. The first way is so weird, I don't think there's any implications about how you get to it. The second way is very different and interesting and connects the eggs to something that we hadn't seen before. So, let's start with the first way. The first way is, okay, once in the TV World segment of the chapter, you must obtain a Lancer controller, which can be found in a side room at the beginning of the TV World. After completing the Lancer puzzle, you must use Susie to throw a block into a specific place across a river. Then you must tell the Zapper in a specific room after being caught that you are going nowhere. You will find a puzzle that will use this block that you threw across the river as Susie. After proceeding, you will find a Bibliox, which, quick side note, I just realized was the book of hymns that is in Chris's house beside the couch. I actually didn't even think of that before making this video. I'm sure everyone else realized that except me. Talk to the Bibliox within the console game until it mentions a wardrobe, and then you must move off screen within the game and head back, and a wardrobe will appear containing the trip ticket. Then you must enter the room where you can encounter the Ribic enemies, and from the Crocon X Act, you don't want to select it, but you want to hold left instead to escape the fight. You will then finally make it to the egg room. This will make no sense to you, probably at all, unless you see footage of it. So yeah, you should follow a guide. I highly recommend it. This egg room is very different from the previous two, as the ones before just had one room with a man in the room behind a tree. But this one is in a new mini area that is seemingly in the console game. In the area, there are a bunch of Rudent NPCs that are like the 7 flying aces or something. But like in the game world, like in the real light world, they're fake playing cards that Chris drew to cheat at card games. They all say a bunch of the weirdest dialogue in the game that just doesn't make any sense, and I don't know if it's lore or not. I can't analyze most of this dialogue. One of them says, "Copies are monochrome," possibly one of the worst lines to come out of this game because of just how much it's quoted and the aftermath caused by it. I hate this dialogue. But eventually, you will stumble upon the tree. The man asks if you will forget him, and you must answer that you won't, and then he'll tell you a story, and then you can accept the egg. So, the story he talks about, just briefly I'm going to talk about it. He talks about how the world once looked like this. And now what he's referring to is the game world that can look like this. And this is the only place that he can talk. I will talk more on this later. This is very important for later that I want to talk about covering the egg rooms. I'm doing all the things at the end, like all my theories and stuff around it. So yeah, stick around. But most of this dialogue of the story is just nonsense talking about dinosaurs and ice ages. But that line specifically, when he says the world looked like this, referring to look like the 8-bit kind of game styles, is very interesting. And after this, he'll just tell you his schedule for the remaining chapters on how to find him in chapter 4 and 5. Okay, let me tell you the other way to get to the egg room. So, if you already got the Shadow Mantle, you will have turned off all the console games in the TV world. So now instead of getting the trip ticket through the Bibliox, you must enter 1225 points into the gumball machine and do the whole desk segment thing. After completing it, you will get the trip ticket, and then just do the same steps as before. Okay, so this makes things even more confusing, because how does the fucking egg connect to this goddamn holiday? They have no connection up to this point, really, and this change to get the trip ticket was added in an update, so it wasn't even in the game on release. It was added later on because I guess it's just so it's an easier way to get it if you already had completed the chapter, I guess. Again, I will talk more on Des and the egg later and how they connect. But the egg in this chapter has nowhere to put it, unlike the previous two, and it'll just disappear from your inventory at the end of the chapter. Again, the game will keep note that you caught it, so don't worry about it. So don't listen to what the man said in Chapter 3 to be able to obtain the Chapter 4 egg, because the window that has the egg in between has a little egg design. Don't waste time counting backwards to 100. Just look for the window with the egg design on it. By the way, this window room is in the second sanctuary after a climbing segment. After entering the egg room, which for some reason this time isn't the 1 in 50, it's just like 8 times you have to go back and forth between the two rooms, you will be found in like an art therapy office. Now, the Rudin at the front desk will say, "This is where we draw pictures and don't kill each other." This implies things about Chris's past that we don't know enough about yet, but we can just speculate on. I will talk about Chris's connection at the end with everything else. Before obtaining the egg, Chris will draw what they saw behind the tree, although they eventually just cover it up with a tree and we don't get to know what it is. Thanks, Chris. You will then get the egg after this. After drawing, you can wash your hands, but you can't completely wash them, as you can never wash it all away. Again, big quote. That is the last egg of this, that is the last thing of this egg room of note. Once again, just disappear after the chapter and know where to put it. And yeah, moving on to the last egg room. So in the newest chapter, you will find the egg located in the room after the cliff shop. At the back of the room, you must cut all of the wheat in the running segment, and then there will be one piece continuously standing, trying to piss you off. You must cut it around like 5-ish times until a balloon comes out of it. Follow the balloon and you'll be taken to a room with the annoying dog, once again, flying around. Interact with the flowers in order that the dog is going to them, and then you can get a watering can to get to the egg room. Once again, you are in a room with the man, but this time a new song is playing than normal. A nicer song, because I actually find the regular egg room song really annoying. The man is once again behind the Scarlet Forest tree, and interacting with him and accepting his offer will give you the egg. If you ask the man for more, implying like more eggs, he will put a hand on your shoulder and shake his head, and the game is indicating that this will be the very last egg room. Exiting the room will take you to the room back before the shop. Once again, you cannot place the egg anywhere in this chapter, and it will presumably leave our inventory once again when chapter 6 begins, and that is the final egg room. So, no more summarizing, let's get to theorizing. Alright, so, let's start off with answering some questions. Let's start off with I find to be one of the easier ones. The man. Who is he? Quite frankly, right now, there is not one consensus that people really share. In fact, I find that people have surprisingly not really talked about the egg recently, even like coming near the end of chapter 4 into chapter 5, or post chapter 5 at all. Really haven't seen a lot of egg talk, which to me is quite surprising, because I found the egg to be one of the most interesting things after this chapter. But for me, the answer to the man was always this. I never believed it was Gaster. I never believed it was Papyrus. I don't know why we went off of Pants to think Papyrus was the Eggman. I think it's just nobody. It's not a character. The whole point of the egg rooms is that they kind of are just there. They're kind of meant to be confusing and leave you with no answers and just more questions every single time. Now, the man could be a representation of something. We don't know this yet. It could be a representation of Chris's trauma or something. But to me, at least, it is not a character. Which I know sounds weird, because the man in and of itself is a character within Deltarune. But, like, there's no character behind the man. The man is either a representation of something or is supposed to be, like, nothing. I hope you get my point. But, yeah, the man is honestly probably one of the least important things about these egg rooms. The man in and of itself. So, why an egg? This is the next question I want to cover. So, the most obvious interpretation that you'll see everyone say is that it's a literal Easter egg, with the man rewarding it for finding this hidden area, right? Easter eggs commonly found in games. But the egg is important in other ways. First off, you probably know the classic paradox. What came first, the chicken or the egg? This just ties back to it, to me. Like, I think this was intentional, because the egg rooms are very paradoxical, in the way they like speak in them. Like, the NPCs are confusing as all hell, and I think this is another reason why an egg was chosen, just as a reference back to a paradox. An egg can also represent new beginnings, as to hatch and start something anew, or something poetic. You get what I'm trying to say. This could relate to Chris's trauma and Chris trying to start living happily again, because they don't seem to be doing so hot in Deltarune. but it could also represent new beginnings for something else as well, and we just don't know it yet. One last thing about the egg. I want to point out something. Why does the egg not change in the dark world? Because I'm assuming it starts in the light world as an egg or something. Because it's the same in both. Well, I think after Chapter 5, we get an answer to that. So, the flowers in the dark world in Chapter 5 can inherently change their shape and make themselves, as we see at the end of the chapter, turn back into flowers when they want to. I don't think other Darkners can just change back to their objects within a dark world, but the flowers seemingly can, and they seem to have chosen a human form, as to what, like, Flowery says in some dialogue. Now, they seemingly have this power because they are neither Lightners nor Darkners. They're just something in between, because flowers aren't objects, but they're not Lightners either. I'm guessing because they don't have, like, a soul. So yeah. I would like to think that an egg is similar to the flowers in some way, where it's neither Lightner nor Darkner. So it could just retain its shape in the dark world. On top of this, it wouldn't have a will. Like, very specifically, the flowers can change their shape because, like, as Flowery keeps talking about, a flower's dream, right? Like, these flowers have so much will because they care for Asgore so much. So that's why they choose to change their shape. But this egg, you can underestimate an egg's dream. It doesn't have one, I don't think. But it might not work, like, it might not work that way. I could just be bullshitting here. Because it could just be that, like, food doesn't change, because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we see food, like, just standard food enter a dark world. Like the dark world food is, like, stickers and stuff. I don't think you see, like a piece of meat enter a dark world and it turns into a Darkner. But of course I could be wrong. So if you have an example, please just say it to me. So another question that the egg rooms propose is a big one. One that we've all had about Deltarune that has been talked about since after Chapter 2. Is Deltarune a game within a game? Now, personally, I never subscribed to this theory myself. I don't know. I just didn't really stick with me. I didn't love it. But like most theories, I try to stay open to it, and especially with after Chapter 5, it's looking very, very plausible. Now, the reason I want to talk about this in this video is because of the Chapter 3 egg room. If you recall, the man in his story tells us how the Dark World used to look like this. This referring to, like, the little minigame Zelda Apex segments. This inherently would tell us that the world of Deltarune used to look like it was one of those games in the TV world. Unless he is just talking about the Dark World, that could also be different. Maybe the Dark World used to just look this way. But if we go off of the interpretation that all of Deltarune did, this would imply that as time passed, Deltarune world got, like, better graphics, more gameplay, and that maybe the room that the egg is in and the man is from a previous build of Deltarune. Think about it like, I don't know if you know this, but think about it like Breath of the Wild. It was actually originally made in, like, the Zelda 1 type of style, just to, like, test, like, physics and mechanics and stuff, before it became the Switch game. So Deltarune would kind of be like the previous build before the game that we are playing currently. And that would also mean that the man was from a previous build, and by going into these egg rooms, we were retrieving lost content, as I mentioned before. This is what could tie the egg rooms to Des, because if Des is the voice in the code, then she would also kind of be lost content in a way, and this is how they connect together. There also have been other hints of Deltarune possibly being a game in a game, especially with the new Weird Route ending, as I mentioned before. However, I won't go into all the details of Deltarune being a game within a game, because I want to focus on the egg rooms, but this actually I find to be supporting evidence for that theory. So, if the egg rooms mean literally have any big lore implications at all, it would be to one character, that character being Kris. So, in all of the egg rooms, Kris is the only character allowed to enter. And if this is about Kris, these egg rooms might be taking place before all of Deltarune, because Kris's health goes back down to the Chapter 1 amount and the status just changes to empty. But let's go over the details we get that are mostly from Chapter 4 about Chris. So, this egg room tells us details about Chris's past and their guilt. Now, I want to mention with the Rudin at the front desk saying we don't kill each other. I actually really don't think that maybe Chris did kill somebody in the past. Like, is it possible? For sure, it's definitely very possible. I know a lot of people interpret it that way. Or they, like, heavily injured somebody. But it could have just been some past fight. It doesn't even need to be physical that Chris could just feel very guilty about. And it could even not be really their fault, but they interpret it that way. You really can't trust also what these Rooted say, because if you remember in Chapter 3, they were just spouting bullshit. Welcome to man country. What the hell does that mean? So I'm going to take what he says with a grain of salt, the Rudin. For me, the most interesting line in this egg room is the line, "You can never wash it all away." As this really just proves the point that Chris had something in their past that we really don't know what yet, possibly connected to December, but we don't know. This could tie back into December holiday. Remember, Chapter 3, the way to get the trip ticket is through the December holiday gumball machine thing. And that could be what Chris is suppressing, drawing the tree over, like whatever happened to Des. And they could feel responsible for killing her, which ties back to the Rudin bringing up we don't kill each other because Chris just feels really, really guilty. Trauma is the big player in this egg group. Again, with everything else around these egg groups, we just don't know enough details right now to figure them out yet. And quite frankly, I actually don't know if we ever will. Just know that the Chapter 4 egg room has heavy trauma connections for Chris. Okay, so, the issue with the egg room's meeting lore is something that I find really annoying. So, one thing that I find with these egg rooms that really, really stumps me is that 2 of the 5, just under half of them, feature the goddamn annoying dog. So why does this cause problems? Well, the annoying dog in Deltarune and Undertale is just outside of this always just used for jokes, just gags. And in these rooms, the dog is doing silly things. I'm sorry, you cannot just disregard this aspect. Chris gets run over by the dog in a car in Chapter 2, and then the dog is just flying around in Chapter 5. And you can't disregard these because this happens twice in 2 different egg rooms. And you have to see the dog in order to see both of these. Like, in order to access these egg rooms, you have to see the dog. Why else would they be put there? Especially the Chapter 5 one. The dog is placed in a way where it's in the secret area before the man. I just don't get it. So, when this newest chapter came out and we had another annoying dog just before the egg, I started feeling like the eggs aren't very significant again. And I still kind of hold true to that in a way. I don't know if they're as significant as I once thought. I put a lot of lore behind it after we got Chapter 4's one, but after this, I've taken away a lot of that significance that I put in the egg rooms. So, are the egg rooms just a joke? Yes and no. I think that the egg rooms are a joke in the fact that we are being pranked by putting this shit in the game. We're getting no answers, okay? And quite frankly, I don't think we ever will get the answer to them. My prediction is that we will never get an answer to the egg rooms in Deltarune, and they will just be forever an enigma. We'll get some more clues how to answer them, but we'll never get a straight answer for it. I think Chapter 5 is probably the last we will see the man, and the egg. I don't know if anything will come of it, quite frankly. The egg rooms do give us some lore in them, don't get me wrong, but the lore given is confusing and feels like it is purposely trying to point us in wrong directions sometimes. A lot of it can be summed up in the check dialogue for the egg itself. Not too important, not too unimportant. This could mean literally anything. Important is in the eye of the beholder, Toby Fox. I typically lead that it is more on the unimportant side, but if you disagree, that is completely valid. I will not blame whoever is wrong in the egg, because quite frankly, shit is impossible. In fact, as I mentioned, the egg rooms give us lore, but you know what barely gives us lore? The man, the egg itself, and the tree. So you know what? Fuck those key details I told you to remember, because they seem to mean jack shit. Everything else seems to matter except them. So in conclusion, the egg rooms are fittingly not too important, but not too unimportant, infuriatingly. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I know it was like a dramatic ending or whatever, but yeah, the egg rooms are very much confusing, and they hurt my head. I had to do quite a bit of research for this video. I was like working on this on the train ride home because that's why I didn't post last week. I was away. Also, why my like new abilities for all the soul modes video started doing very well again recently, which quite shocked me. Thank you for all the support. I know I got the orange soul correct, guys, but it's it's nothing crazy, I feel. But if I did miss anything in details in this video, please correct me. If I got anything wrong, I would feel terrible if I just got something unknowingly wrong and was just never corrected for it, just confusing people. Also, the chapters 1 to 4, the egg room segments that I show in this video, the chapter 5 one is my footage, but I do not have footage currently of the chapters 1 through 4. The people whose videos I used as that footage will be linked in the description. So yeah, I just want to let that out there. I really need to go back and record my footage. I literally replayed through the chapters before chapter 5 and I just never hit the record button, and I really don't know why. So yeah, all of them except for the chapter 5 footage is somebody else's. Just for the egg rooms, if I put any other footage of just Deltarune gameplay, that will also be mine. Anyways, that's enough of me. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one next week. So, goodbye.